Hello student. Now today we will start the second law of thermodynamics. So what basically second law of thermodynamics is? The second law of thermodynamics is the law of direction. What is the difference between the first law of thermodynamics and second law of thermodynamics? In the first law of thermodynamics, it is said that the one form of energy can be converted into another form of energy and energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. He doesn't tell or the first law doesn't explain which form of the energy will be converted into which one another form. Okay, but while the second law is explained the directional law because it says in which direction the energy will be converted spontaneously, and for that energy has been divided into two types of energy, that is the high grade energy and the low grade energy. What is the high grade energy? Work is being considered as a high grade energy and heat has been considered as a low grade energy. And it is assumed that a high grade energy can be directly converted into the low grade energy. Okay, means suppose if we start to rub our hand, then we are working a work, we are doing some work. Okay, as a result what will happen? Our palm will warm up, means my work has been converted into heat. So this is spontaneous. Okay, so therefore a work which is a high grade energy can be directly converted into low grade energy, and for that there is no external means is being required. But as for the first law of thermodynamics, okay, this is okay that the work has been converted into heat, but what will happen? Suppose if we heat up our palm and then we keep our palm very close to one another. So does it work something like this? No, it is not at all possible. Means that heat has not been converted into work. But as for the first law of thermodynamics, it can happen, but it doesn't happen. Okay, so first law only tells about that only one form of energy can be converted into another form of energy, but it doesn't tell about which energy will be converted into another form of energy directly or indirectly. So for that we have told that the energy has been divided into two parts, that is the high grade energy and low grade energy. The high grade energy is work and low grade energy is heat. And work can be directly converted into heat, but heat cannot be converted directly into the work. So in the second law it told that only high grade energy can be converted into low grade energy, but the conversion of low grade energy into high grade energy is not possible without any external means we have to use some device or something new equipment for conversion of heat into work. But for as a mechanical engineer, what is the required? What our requirement is the work at output. So it is necessary to convert the low grade energy into high grade energy. So some another devices has been used, and that divide we will discuss later. So this is the basic difference between the first law and second law of thermodynamics. Okay, so now to explain the second law of thermodynamics, some terms related to them can be explained properly. The first one is that thermal energy reservoir. What is the thermal energy reservoir? Okay, so now see, we know that the heat of any body can be written as mc delta T. Okay, where what is delta T? Delta T is the temperature difference. mc is nothing but it is known as heat capacity. Heat capacity. And delta T is your temperature difference. Now suppose that the temperature difference of a body is remains constant. If we want to put the temperature difference remains constant, so the value of heat and remains constant, or in other words we can say that the delta T, that is the temperature difference, is nearby equal to 0. Means temperature is constant but the temperature difference is the nearby equal to 0. Okay, the temperature is constant. Constant is nothing but it is temperature. And delta T, that is the temperature difference, this becomes 0. Okay, so please make it correct. So whatever be the amount of heat, if the heat capacity is being infinite, then this can exist. Okay, so thermal energy reservoir is what? Thermal energy reservoir is a body of infinite heat capacity. So if a body has a capacity of infinite, then the temperature remains constant irrespective of the heat transfer. Now to suppose if we take the body heat capacity of any body as infinite, then what will happen? For any value of Q, this temperature difference might be equal to 0. Okay, means the temperature of the body remains constant. So thermal energy reservoir is nothing but it is a body, it is a thermal body whose heat capacity is infinite and for which its temperature remains constant irrespective of how much amount of the energy has been taken. In case of water, ocean or sea has been considered as a thermal energy reservoir because its capacity is infinite. Okay, now there are two types of the body. The one is known as source and other one is known as sink. Source is a thermal energy reservoir is keeping as a high temperature at high temperature which always delivers the heat, means it always gives the heat. And sink is a slower body temperature in which we absorb all the heat. The source always delivers the heat and sink always absorbs all the heat. Environment is considered to be best sink source, best sink. Okay, so this is your thermal energy reservoir. Only thing you have to remember that thermal energy reservoir means infinite capacity body, so that its temperature remains constant irrespective of how much amount of the heat has been taken away. Now, the second law of thermodynamics. So for the second law of thermodynamics, there are two different statements has been taken by the two scientists. One is Kelvin Planck and other one is the Clausius. So first we will consider the Kelvin Planck statement. What is the Kelvin Planck statement? Kelvin Planck statement says that it is impossible for a heat engine to produce the net work in a complete cycle if it exchanges heat only with the bodies at a single fixed temperature. What he says, suppose there is a heat engine operating, okay, heat engine is operating on a only single fixed temperature body, and this single fixed temperature body is your source, and it takes the heat from this source, because I have already told that source is a body which always delivers the heat. Now this heat is being used by the heat engine and it converts the work. All the heat will be converted into work. So it is not possible. Only a single fixed temperature body, if any device works, then that cannot converts all the heat into work. So for that, the body must have to work between the two temperature limits, so that there is a source and one temperature limit is the sink. Then some parts of the heat will be converted into work and rest of the part of the heat will be absorbed by this sink. Okay, so this is your Kelvin Planck statement. Okay, if a body is working on a single fixed temperature, then heat cannot be converted directly into work. This is the Kelvin Planck statement, and on the basis of the Kelvin Planck statement, perpetual motion of machine kind 2 have been defined, that heat cannot be fully converted into work. If a body is working directly on a single temperature body, then all the heat will not be converted into work. This is your perpetual motion of machine kind 2. It is impossible because it violates the Kelvin Planck statement. So you have to remember that perpetual motion of machine kind 1, that works on the principle of first law of thermodynamics, while perpetual motion of machine kind 2, that works on the principle of second law of thermodynamics, and it violates the Kelvin Planck statement. So PMM2 is not at all possible. Okay, now what is the heat engine? As I have already described, that the conversion of a high grade energy into a low grade energy is possible and it is spontaneous. But the conversion of low grade energy into high grade energy is not spontaneous. And being as a mechanical engineer, what we need at output the work, some work, and that heat can be converted into work. So the question arises, how to convert the low grade energy, that is heat, into a high grade energy, that is into work. So for that a device has been used. That device is namely as heat engine. So heat engine is nothing but it is a device which converts the low grade energy into a high grade energy. For that, heat engine always works between the two temperature sources, because on a single source temperature source it is not possible to convert the heat into work, because it violates the Kelvin Planck statement. So a heat engine is a device which operates between the two temperature limits. So there is a source at a higher temperature T1 and there is a sink of temperature T2, then T1 and T2 being the two temperature difference. So heat engine converts the part of this heat input, that is the Q1 is the heat which is being given or rejected by this sink source, and Q2 is the heat which is absorbed by the sink. So if we take the heat engine and apply the first law of thermodynamics, then Q1 is the total heat input and W and Q2 is the total heat output. Under steady state condition, Q1 is equal to Q2 plus W. So W becomes Q1 minus Q2. So this is an energy balance with the help of the first law of thermodynamics, as we have already explained. So it is a very small thing that Q1 minus Q2 becomes to be W, but this is under steady state condition. Always remember, this is under steady state condition. Okay, so what is the efficiency of this heat engine? Efficiency nothing but it is the output divided by the input. What is our output? Output is your work. And what is input? How much amount of the heat is being taken by this heat engine. So this is Q1. So this is nothing but it is W upon Q1, or W can be written as Q1 minus Q2. So this comes out to be 1 minus Q2 upon Q1. So 1 minus Q2 upon Q1 will be the efficiency of a heat engine. And heat engine is a device which converts the low grade energy, that is heat, into work. Okay. So this is your heat engine. Then PMM2 I have already explained. Now the second statement, I have told that there are two different statements for the second law of thermodynamics. The first was the Kelvin Planck statement and second one was the Clausius statement. What the Clausius statement says? Clausius statement says that it is impossible to construct a device which operating in a cycle will produce no effect other than the transfer of heat from a cooler body to a hotter body. So what he says that suppose there are two temperatures. This is lower temperature body having temperature TL, and this is your high temperature body, this is TH. And he says that suppose a device is operating between these two temperature limits and it takes QL and it transfer it into QH. Then transfer of heat from a lower temperature body to a higher temperature body, it is not possible by doing any external work. Means some external other work has to be done. If this is done, then it is okay. Then this is, if it is not here, if this is not being taken, then the only conversion of lower temperature body to higher temperature body heat, this is not possible. So this is basically says by the Clausius. Okay, this conversion is possible only when some external, means some work has been done on this body. Okay, so this is your Clausius statement that it is impossible to construct a device operating in a cycle to produce no effect other than the transfer heat from a cooler body to a hotter body. Okay, so means the conversion of heat from a cooler body to a hotter body is possible, but by means of some external work. So on the basis of the Clausius statement, two devices has been developed, known as heat pump and refrigeration. Heat engine basically works on the basis of the Kelvin Planck statement, while heat pump and refrigeration, they work on the basis of the Clausius statement. Always remember this thing. So what is the heat pump? Heat pump is nothing but it is a body which maintains the temperature of a body at a higher than the ambient temperature. Okay, and refrigerator, is nothing but it is a device which maintain the temperature of a body, just make it lower than the ambient temperature. By mistake I have taken it written as it is the higher, so please make it lower. So heat pump which maintains the temperature of the body higher than the ambient temperature, and refrigerator which maintain the temperature of a body lower than the ambient temperature. Is that okay? So what is heat pump and refrigerator? Now heat pump / refrigerator suppose either it is a heat pump or refrigerator which operates between the two temperature limits, that is TL and TH, where TL is the lower body temperature and TH is higher body temperature, and it takes QL amount of heat and transfer QH amount of heat, and as per the Clausius some internal work has been done on this body. Okay, then the heat pump is nothing but it to maintain the temperature of the body at a higher than the ambient temperature, while in the refrigerator to maintain the temperature of a body lower than the ambient temperature. Now for heat pump and refrigerator, one word has been defined which is known as COP, known as coefficient of performance. Coefficient of performance. And what is COP? So COP is nothing but it is desired effect to work input. So if we see that the COP of a heat pump, so what is our desired effect? To maintain the temperature of a body higher than the ambient temperature. So for heat pump, this is your ambient and this is our temperature of a body at higher. So our desired effect is nothing but it is QH divided by work input is W. If we apply the first law of thermodynamics on HP, that is heat pump or refrigerator, then QH under steady state condition is nothing but QL plus W, because this is your E output and these two are nothing but their input heat. So under steady state condition, E input is equal to E output. So work done is nothing but it is QH minus QL. So this can be written as QH upon QH minus QL. Similarly, what is the COP for a refrigerator? So for refrigerator, what is our desired effect? Desired effect is to maintain the temperature of a body lower than the ambient temperature. So QL, that is the lower temperature body side, is our desired effect. So QL upon work input, and this is known as QL upon QH minus QL. From equation number 1 and 2, if you see, then what will happen? COP of heat pump minus COP of refrigerator, if we subtract this minus this, then QH minus QL upon QH minus QL, this becomes 1. So we can say that COP of a heat pump is equal to 1 plus COP of a refrigerator. So this is very, very important result, and almost every year the question related to this is being asked in engineering services examination and GATE examination. So COP of a heat pump and refrigerator is very, very important. So always remember these formulas. Okay, so heat pump and refrigeration basically works on the principle of the Clausius statement, while heat engine works on the basis of Kelvin Planck statement. And these two statements are very much important because they are known as the second law of thermodynamics. Now, equivalence of the Clausius statement to the Kelvin-Planck statement, what it says? It says that if we violate the Kelvin-Planck statement, then Clausius statement will automatically be violated, or if the Clausius statement is being violated, then Kelvin-Planck statement violates. Means both the statements are complementary of each other. Means for second law of thermodynamics, both has to be maintained. Okay? Both statement has to be fulfilled. Now see how if we violate the Kelvin-Planck statement, then how Clausius statement will be violated, and if we violate the Clausius statement, then how Kelvin-Planck statement violates. Now to suppose there is a higher body temperature, high thermal energy reservoir maintained at a temperature T1, and there is a lower temperature which maintains at a temperature T2. A heat engine is working between the temperature limits T1 and T2. Okay, now I'm just going to explain. Suppose this is higher body temperature, this is lower body temperature. Now I am assuming that there is a heat engine which operates between a single fixed temperature at a higher body temperature, and all the heat has been converted into work. So means it violates the Kelvin-Planck statement. Is it okay? Kelvin-Planck, this is the violation of the Kelvin-Planck statement. Now there is another body which operates between the same temperature limit, that is the TL and TH, and it absorbs the heat from TL lower temperature body and relieves the heat at higher temperature body, and it takes the same amount of the work which is being delivered by the heat engine. Means this W and this W both will be equal, and this heat which it rejects to the high temperature body and the amount of heat which it takes from the high temperature body will be equal. It has been assumed. Then what will happen? Then we can just remove it out, or this and this constitute that total amount of the work which it gives, and this is the total amount of the work which it absorbs. If we combine these two, then what will happen? The net effect is nothing, there is no work done. Okay, and only thing which we see that the heat will be transferred from a low temperature body to a higher temperature body. Heat has been converted directly from lower temperature body to a higher temperature body without any other effect. So it violates the Clausius statement. So the violation of the Kelvin-Planck statement is nothing but it is the violation of Clausius statement too. Okay. Similarly, the violation of the Clausius statement is the violation of Kelvin-Planck statement. So how? How the violation of Clausius statement is the violation of Kelvin-Planck statement? Now suppose there is a heat pump or a refrigerator which operates between the two temperature limits, that is TL and TH, and it transfers the heat from a lower temperature body to a higher temperature body without any external means or without any other effect. So it violates the classes statement. Now it violates the classes statement. Now suppose there is a heat engine, reversible heat engine, which produces work and it takes the same amount of heat. This is a heat engine which operates between the same temperature limit and takes the same amount of heat. So this and this both are equal, so what we can do? We can combine these two. So after combining these two, what we will see? We will see that we will remove this portion. So this has been removed. Okay, this q1 will be taken and this q2 will be converted to this one, and if we combined these two, then what will happen? The next effect is some work done. We will receive some work done, and what is the total amount of the heat transfer? This much amount of the heat is being leaving and this much amount of heat absorbed. So difference of this will be this much amount of the heat will be transferred and some work will be done. Okay, so this violates the Kelvin Planck statement, because on a single fixed temperature body, if the body works, then it cannot convert heat into work. So the violation of the classes statement violates the Kelvin Planck statement too. So this is the equivalence of the Kelvin Planck statement and the classes statement. If we violates the one statement, then the other will automatically be violated. So this was basically explained in Kelvin Planck and classes statement. Okay, the violation of one will be the violation of other two. Now come to one of the most important theorem, that is the Carnot's theorem. So what the Carnot's theorem says? Carnot's theorem says that suppose there are a number of heat engines operating between the same temperature limits, then the reversible heat engine has the maximum efficiency. And the second statement of this Carnot's theorem says that the efficiencies of all the reversible heat engine, if they are working between the same temperature limits, then their efficiencies will be same. The first part of Carnot's theorem says, suppose we have two heat engines. One is a reversible heat engine. Now let us assume this is reversible heat engine taking heat Q1, relieve heat T2, and W is the work. Temperature limit T1 and T2. And between the same temperature limit, a reversible heat engine is also operating. We take the same amount of heat but relieve some different heat and some different work. Okay, now we assume that efficiency, this is your reversible heat engine and this is irreversible heat engine. So now we are assuming that efficiency of irreversible heat engine is greater than the efficiency of reversible engine. Assume. This we have assumed. This is our hypothesis between same temperature limits. Now, since it is a reversible heat engine, then the direction of the heat transfer will be reversed also. Then what will be the next figure? If we reverse this, because in a reversible heat engine all the processes are reversible and reversible process can be retraced and there is no changes takes place. We have already studied this thing. And here this is Q2 amount of heat will be taken, W is the work input, and this is Q1. This is T1 and this is T2. Since we have assumed that irreversible heat engine has efficiency more than the reversible heat engine. So what is this? This is nothing but W upon Q1, W dash in efficiency for irreversible is W dash is output and Q1 is your input upon Q1 will be greater than to W upon Q1 for reversible. So which shows that irreversible work will be greater than to reversible work. So now see, irreversible work is the output work which we are taking from irreversible heat engine, and reversible work is the work which is being consumed. So if we combined these two, when we combined these two, then what will happen? The net effect, and this is the Q1 amount of the heat will be given, and this converts the, and this takes the Q1 amount. So we see this can be converted into a heat engine which operates between the temperature limit T2. It takes this Q amount of heat and it delivers the net heat. This is the W dash heat is that output, and W heat will be consumed. So W dash minus W, this much amount of the heat will be received, and this Q1 and Q1, so this heat thermal energy reservoir will be removed because it is the same. So the combined effect of this figure is something like this. From here it is something like this, and from here it is something like this. Okay, so what it says, that its combined effect, that this heat engine converts this heat into work while working on a single fixed temperature T2, which violates the Kelvin-Planck statement. Since it violates the Kelvin-Planck statement, which is not possible, it means whatever be the hypothesis we have assumed is not possible. It means reversible heat engine must have the efficiencies greater than the irreversible heat engine. This is your Carnot's theorem. Between the same temperature limit, if a heat engine is reversible and another one is irreversible, then the reversible heat engine must have the higher efficiency than the irreversible heat engine. Okay. Now it's the second part says that if there are two reversible heat engines operating between the same temperature limits, then both have the same efficiencies. So now for second part of the Carnot's theorem, suppose we have two different heat engines. This is heat engine 1, this is heat engine 2. So the efficiencies of heat engine 1 must be equal to the efficiency of heat engine 2. This we have to prove, to be proved. Let it takes the Q1 and Q2 amount of the heat will be rejected working between the two temperature limits T1 and T2, and it gives you the work done W1. And here this heat engine takes the Q1 dash amount of heat and gives the Q2 dash amount of heat, and it is W2. And we assumed that they take the same amount of heat. That is Q1. So assuming that eta 1 is not equal to eta 2. We have assumed that eta 1 not equal to eta 2. Okay, so when eta 1 is not equal to eta 2 means W1 will not be equal to W2, because efficiencies is nothing but it is W1 upon Q1 and W2 upon Q1. So W1 upon is not equal to W2. So if we see, since they are reversible heat engine, so it can be reversed. after reversing, then what will happen? Now let us assume that this has been reversed. We can reverse any of the heat engine. I am just reversing this heat engine W1. So it is Q1, this is Q2 dash, this produces W2, it takes Q2, gives Q1, and it consumes W1 work. Okay, so now this and this first heat engine has been reversed, and it delivers Q1 amount of heat, and it takes the same Q1 amount of heat from T1 temperature source. So we can remove this temperature and we can combinedly these two. Then this figure will be something like this. And since W1 is not equal to W2, then it means that any of the difference between W1 minus W2 exists. Suppose this is the difference of W1 minus W2, and this takes some Q amount of heat. Let us assume the difference of these two will be Q, the Q amount of the heat. So this is a heat engine which operates on a single fixed temperature T2, which converts the heat into work, which is not possible. It violates the Kelvin-Planck statement. So our assumption that both the efficiencies are not equal is not possible. Hence, both the efficiencies will be equal, because once the efficiencies will be equal, then W1 is equal to W2. In that particular case, no work will be observed. Okay. So this is nothing but it is your violation of the Kelvin-Planck statement. So the efficiencies of the two reversible heat engine will be equal while operating in a same temperature limits. This was your Carnot's theorem. Now the next one is your Carnot cycle. What is the Carnot cycle? Carnot cycle is again a very important cycle. So now see what is the Carnot cycle. One to two. The processes 1 to 2 is an isothermal heat addition process. Two to three, adiabatic expansion process. 3 to 4, isothermal heat rejection process. 4 to 1, adiabatic compression process. And always remember that all the processes are reversible process. All the processes are reversible process. Okay, so this is nothing but this is the Carnot cycle. That is, in the Carnot cycle, 1 to 2 is isothermal heat addition process. Now let us assume that Q1 amount of the heat is being added, and Q2, that is from 3 to 4, is the process in isothermal heat rejection process. So what is the net amount of the work? And since from 2 to 3 and 4 to 1 they are adiabatic expansion and adiabatic compression, so no heat transfer will take place. So according to the Joule's law, as per Joule's law, summation Q will be equal to summation work done for any cycle. Joule's law says. So what is summation Q? Q1 amount of the heat will be added and Q2 amount of the heat will be rejected. This is summation W, that is the net work done. This is nothing but it is the net work done. Okay, so what is the efficiency of Carnot cycle? This is the net work done divided by the heat input. What is net work done? That is Q1 minus Q2 divided by heat input is Q1. So efficiency of the Carnot cycle is 1 minus Q2 upon Q1. So this is the efficiency of a Carnot cycle, where Q1 and Q2 are nothing but they are the heat addition and heat rejection respectively at isothermal heat rejection process. And always remember that all the process of the Carnot cycle are reversible process. So this is very important cycle, Carnot cycle, and this is the basis for your power plant and all the other different processes will be different cycles will be based on the basis of this Carnot cycle. This was the basic of all the cycles which works in the power plant. So we derive all the other cycles with the process, all the cycles with the help of this Carnot cycle. So that we will see later on while we will studying the power plant analysis. Okay. So QH amount of the heat will be taken and QC is the amount of the heat rejection. Now what is the thermodynamic temperature scale? Thermodynamic temperature scale basically says, suppose we have one heat engine and it operates between the two temperature limits T1 and T2. This is heat engine 1 between the temperature limit T1 and T2. It takes amount of heat Q1 and rejects Q2 amount of heat at temperature T2 and produces some work. Another heat engine which works between the same temperature limit T2 and T3. Now let us assume this is your heat engine 2 and this rejects, and it takes Q2 amount of heat and rejects Q3 amount of heat. It gives you W1 work and this gives you W2 work. Okay, so what is the efficiency of this first heat engine? The efficiency of this first heat engine, it will be nothing but it is W1 upon Q1, or we can say that it is 1 minus Q2 upon Q1. Similarly, what is the efficiency of second heat engine? The efficiency of second heat engine is W2 upon Q2. Q2 amount of the heat will be taken. So this is 1 minus Q3 upon Q2. Now since this heat engine and this heat engine operates between the same temperature limit, so we can say that this can be converted into a single heat engine which operates between temperature T1 and temperature limit T3. This take Q1 and this take Q3, and some W work will be taken. So what is the efficiency of third heat engine? Means this heat engine. This is nothing but it is W upon Q1, that is 1 minus Q3 upon Q1. Okay, so thermodynamic temperature scale says that the efficiency must have to be in such a form that, and they are the reversible heat engine, the efficiencies are in such a form that this value and this value will be converted directly into these two temperature limits. Means this efficiency will be the function of temperatures, function of temperature T1 and T2. This is another function of temperature T2, Q3, T2 and T3, and this is nothing but it is the function of temperature T1 and T3. So function T1 and T2 says what? It is the function of Q2 upon Q1, so which can be taken as T2 upon T1. Similarly, function T2 upon T3, that can be nothing but it is Q3 upon Q2, and this value is nothing but it is equal to T3 upon T2. So T3 upon this function will be nothing but it is the multiplication of these two. So Q1 upon Q3 is nothing but it is Q1 upon Q2 into Q2 upon Q3. This can be written as Q1 upon Q2 is T1 upon T2 into T2 upon T3. So Q1 upon Q3 becomes T1 upon T3, so which is the function of T1 upon T1 and T3. So on the basis of this we can predict that Q1 upon Q2 upon Q1 is nothing but it is T2 upon T1 for a reversible heat engine. So for a reversible heat engine, the efficiencies can be written as 1 minus Q2 upon Q1, and that can be written as 1 minus T2 upon T1. So this is only applicable for reversible heat engine, only for reversible heat engine. Okay, so when it is applicable only for reversible heat engine, then what is COP? So for COP we can also do, so COP we have taken as COP of heat pump. Sorry, if we see the COP of heat pump, so that was nothing but QH upon QH minus QL. So that can be written as TH upon TH minus TL. Similarly, COP of refrigerator, that can be QL upon QH minus QL. That can be written as TL upon TH minus TL. But always remember, only for reversible heat pump and refrigerator. Okay, and this is only for reversible heat engine. So this is your thermodynamic temperature scale. Now this is very important, the Clausius inequality. So now let us see what is the Clausius inequality. Clausius inequality says that cyclic integration of dq upon t will be less than or equal to 0. Equality holds for reversible heat engine, for reversible engine. So first we will take for the reversible, and so then we will take for irreversible, and we will prove the Crassus inequality means this thing, cyclic integration of dq upon t will be less than or equal to 0. This is most important, and many of the questions will be done on the basis of the Clausius inequality. So first we will consider for reversible engine. Reversible engine or reversible device. It may be reversible heat engine and anything. Suppose so we know that for reversible heat engine, cyclic integration dq upon t, so this can be written as q1 amount of the heat will be taken at the temperature of T1, so q1 upon T1 plus, and q2 amount of the heat will be rejected at a temperature of T2, so heat rejection will be taken as minus sign, so minus q2 upon T2, so this becomes q1 upon T1 minus q2 upon T2. But for reversible process, we know that q1 upon T1 is equal to q2 upon T2. So using this, we can use it over here. The cyclic integration for reversible is dq upon t becomes q1 upon T1 is equal to q2 upon T2. So this becomes 0. This we have to prove. So for any cyclic process, the cyclic integration of dq upon t will always be equal to 0, and this is a very important result, and many of the problem will be done on the basis of this particular equation. So this is very important equation, that the cyclic integration dq upon t means summation of all the q at a constant temperature T, and always remember this is a thermal energy reservoir temperature T. Now the second part is for irreversible engine. For irreversible engine, then what will happen? Suppose we have two heat engine working between the same temperature limit. One is reversible and other one is irreversible, and both take the same amount of heat. Let q1 amount of heat. This gives you W reversible work, and this gives you W irreversible work. This reject Q2 R reversible heat, and this reject Q2 irreversible heat. Here it is T1 temperature and this is T2 temperature. Now we have to calculate the cyclic integration of dq upon t for irreversible. So for irreversible is this one. So this is q1 upon T1 minus q2i upon T2. This I am taking for irreversible. Now for reversible engine, so q1 upon T1 may be written as q2r upon T2. So we can write cyclic integration dq upon t for irreversible engine, that will be q1 upon T1 may be written as q2r upon T2 minus q2i upon T2. So this is 1 upon T2 into q2r minus q2i. This can be written as 1 upon T2. Now Q2R, how to write Q2R? Q2R is nothing but it is Q1 minus WR minus, how to write Q2I? Q2I is Q1 minus WI. So this becomes Wi minus W reversible divided by T2. But we know that the reversible heat engine has the maximum efficiency if any of the engines operate between the same temperature limit. So WR must be greater than to WI. Since reversible heat engine has maximum efficiency, hence WR must be greater than to WI. So this shows that WI minus WR will be negative. So if WI minus WR will be negative, so cyclic integration dQ upon T for irreversible engine will be less than to 0. So this we have to prove. For any irreversible engine, the cyclic integration of dQ upon T will be less than to 0. While for reversible engine, the cyclic integration of dQ upon T will be equal to 0. So this is very important result, which is your Carnot, which is your Clausius inequality. This is the Clausius inequality. Okay. So this is all about your second law of thermodynamics. Now in the next one, we will discuss some problem related to first law of thermodynamics.